Welcome to 5 Dubs by MDDC Press. I'm your host, Rebecca Snyder, the Executive Director of the Maryland, Delaware, and DC Press Association, which represents news media in our region. 5 Dubs focuses on the who, what, when, where, and why of local news media. We'll talk with the journalists about the stories behind the news. You can find more information about our guests in the show notes or on our website, www.5-dubs.com. Welcome. I'm Rebecca Snyder, your host of 5 Dubs, the Maryland, Delaware, DC Press Association's podcast and video series. Today with me is Jake Owens, the editor of the Delaware Business Times. So welcome, Jake.
Thank you so much for having us on. We're very excited to be a part of it.
Absolutely. And, Delaware, I think everyone kind of recognizes that, Delaware means business. It's where companies are incorporated, all those great things. But there's not, and people are calling you all the time because that's how life works. But the Business Times, tell us a little bit about your publication and how it kind of knits into that community.
Yeah, we were founded in September 2014. So in the grand scheme of the media ecosystem, we're still pretty young and in some ways still kind of finding our way and finding our sea legs. And we're a product that's owned and operated by Today Media. So that's a family owned and operated company with Rob Martinelli as our president. And most people know Rob for his original product, which is Delaware Today magazine. But we also have holdings in Philadelphia and the New York suburbs as well. And, when he originally looked at launching this paper, there was a recognition that through just some of the corporatization and cuts of the media ecosystem, one of the things that the big paper companies were quickly doing away with was business news and coverage, and especially corporate business news and coverage. So, he recognized that Wilmington is kind of the center of the corporate business world in many ways, especially for financial services, for advanced manufacturing, for bioscience increasingly. These were areas that seemingly were going more and more not uncovered by our local media. And he thought there was a real opportunity. And I think in talking with some of the business leaders in Wilmington, Delaware's largest city, and around the state, he recognized that there was an opportunity to found a local business newspaper here in Delaware. And so, one of the other things that people tend to recognize is that we're close enough to Philadelphia that sometimes we get some of that Philadelphia market coming down to Wilmington, and yet the Philadelphia Business Journal up in our neighbors there, they had their hands full with the city of brotherly love, so they didn't make it down to Wilmington that often, which was nice. So it left a pretty big opportunity for us. We launched in a very small operation with a printed product. And, that's kind of grown and lasted, and people have started to identify this brand. We're the only printed business newspaper in the state. We have some, online competitors out there, but, we've really kind of turned a corner here in the last 4 or 5 years, and, just really turned up the quality and quantity of coverage that we're able to provide readers across the state. And we're seeing that, that recognition coming back in spades. And so we're getting connected with some of the top corporate leaders. And, we cover everything. I like to tell people, they often say, who are you talking to? What are you doing? I'm like, last 2 nights ago, I was talking with the CEO at Chemours. It's $1 billion chemical company spun out of DuPont. And, 3 days before that, I was talking to the general manager of the local YMCA. So, we talk from everybody from your local trash company to your bioscience innovators to, restaurateurs up and down the state. Basically, if you're making money in some way, shape, or form, we're there to cover you. So we're excited to be a part of that.
Well, and it's such a critical piece because Delaware has actually, I think, a lot of independent news sources, which is terrific. But this really is, as you said, the only sort of print business news, and business drives the economy for sure. I mean, it's not all somebody the consumer spending has to come from somewhere, and so understanding the business climate and the business community is so critical. And although you're part of the Philadelphia DMV, I guess is the market.
Mhm.
Um, Delaware sees itself very, there's a lot of loyalty, a lot of pride in Delaware. And I'm really glad to see that you found your niche in terms of knitting together or working in that business community. So tell me a little bit more about your readers or the community that you're reaching. And you have the print product. You also have an online presence. What other types of ways are you knitting or working together with that community?
Yeah, I mean, it's look, it's 2023, so kind of solely depending upon your core print product is a very difficult prospect.
That would be
So
challenging.
we're very diversified, to be honest, in terms of what we do. We do have a print product. We print twice a month at this point, so we have 24 editions a year. We've gone through a pretty large redesign of that product here in the last 2 years, which has been pretty well received. And one of the things I like about that is we have a rotating what we call our spotlight or special section calendar.
Mhm.
So each of our 24 editions has a different industry or area of the state that we look at. So we might have one that looks entirely at kind of, what is manufacturing doing right now? What's the future of
Mhm.
manufacturing look like? And then the next week we might be doing something on small business startups, or we might be doing something on banking or, the legal industry in the state. So it's a good way to really make sure that we're doing our job, not just being, the banking paper or the law firm paper or, the chemical paper, but we're really kind of getting up and down the state and trying to cover each and different aspect. And I think, like most, what we found is our online presence is huge today. Most of our readers are coming to us online. We have a
Sure.
very active daily newsletter, daily weekday newsletter, and kind of a weekend recap. We publish every day. And I think that's important. There are a lot of we're a very small team. It's myself, our associate editor Katie Tabling, and my social coordinator and research coordinator Sabrina Gonzalez. That's it. That's
Wow.
all we have in terms of putting together our production. And you know, when we look at what we want to do, we made sure that we wanted to be a daily publication, because if you're not printing, you're dying in many ways. So we want to make sure that we're staying up to date. So those are our core products. We put out about a half dozen supplemental products throughout the year. We do a very large, very high quality guide we call Innovation, which takes a look at cutting edge innovation happening in Delaware. A lot of our economic development folks like to use that to try and encourage new companies to come to Delaware. And then conversely, we have one called Careers and Stuff, which looks at basically career fields that don't require higher education,
Mhm.
really geared towards the trades. And so we have a partnership with the Delaware Department of Education to try to disseminate that to high schoolers across the state for folks, families out there that maybe recognize their students not going to be a philosophy major someday. They want to be a welder, they want to be in healthcare. We can kind of give them a firsthand glance, a firsthand look at what some of the career opportunities in those fields are. And then, like many, we have a very large and growing awards and events
Mhm.
program. We're out in the community. Like I said, 2 days ago, we just had our CEO of the Year event where we have a large production that tries to recognize some of the best chief executives around the state. In 2 months, we'll be doing our top 40 under 40 program, which looks at young professionals, those that are
Mhm.
really kind of making a name for themselves and rising up through the ranks. And then this fall, we're going to be launching our first DEI and J program that will recognize folks in the community that are really advancing diversity, equity, inclusion, and social justice. So we're really excited, and we're doing that in partnership with Delaware's HBCU, Delaware State University.
Mhm.
So these are all to do just one thing really isn't enough anymore. You really kind of have to try to hit as many of your spots as you can to try and keep the name out there, find new revenue streams, and find new readers, new subscribers. And we've been lucky that we've been adding subscribers every year for the past few years. We're gaining a greater recognition in the marketplace.
Well, and I think it's showing that, there's certainly a need and a thirst for information about, those businesses and that community. And, I think that kind of speaks to, in some ways, sort of the changing aspect of journalism. Like as editor, you are in all aspects of that. You're thinking about audience development. You're thinking about, what kind of events you can put on. You're writing the stories. And it's just, to my mind, that's a really diverse portfolio because you're dealing with all levels of business. You're going with the trades and the white collar, like that's a lot.
That's
So
right. Yeah.
how has that changed? I mean, you came from a much smaller, from a different community before you came to Delaware Business Times. And that also was a really close knit community. But I don't think that you were working in such a broad way. How has that changed for you?
No, definitely not. I mean, I came from a more out of college, went to work for a newspaper group in Maryland, and for years ran really kind of a general news publication for about a decade, and really ran some weeklies up and down the Chesapeake Bay. And it was a very different approach. It was more focus on core products, try to find some supplementals that could really kind of help increase your bottom line. And when I came to Today Media, there was definitely a sense of trying to look ahead in the future a little bit and trying to figure out, reading the tea leaves and seeing the subscription and readership patterns and trends that are obviously have been in decline for 20 or 30 years here now. Trying to market to the right audiences and trying to make sure that we're doing everything we can to shore up those subscriber bases, and at the same time do things that get us out in the community more. So we do those awards programs routinely drive several hundred people to our events. We also do a series with the Small Business Development Center here in Delaware. So we do smaller programs throughout the calendar year that often will help small business owners, entrepreneurs kind of help start their businesses, think about tax strategies for income flows, think about where to find venture capital and angel investors. We try to do everything and anything, and it's an exhausting prospect many days. I hope there's a day where we can add some more staff, or maybe I don't have to wear so many hats.
Right. But just think of all the things you're learning. I mean,
know,
God,
it's true. You're getting like an MBA, in 2 years time. So we're lucky to have a really great team on the sales side, on the events and marketing side, in our in our administrative and corporate suites. These are people that have been doing it most of their lives. And we also, in many ways, are able to learn from and really take advantage of the lessons learned from Delaware Today, which it's been a publication that's been around for decades now. They have a very robust events program. Their Best of Delaware party is one of the biggest parties of the year on Delaware's social calendar. I believe we just had that 2 weeks ago, and it brought about 1,200 people out to the Chase Center downtown. So, it's something that we feel we have to do to kind of stay relevant, and it's a tall task some days.
Well, and I always think of it sort of as a fractured, not only just media landscape, but just people's attention is spread across so many different channels and inputs. So, you have all the social media things, you have print things, and you have in person, you have, just everything has to kind of work together, especially if you're thinking about like, well, what information are we trying to present and where are people looking? And, you have to, it sounds like you're engaging the workforce and the companies, you're trying to engage everyone. So you have to be everywhere.
Yes.
So has that, it sounds like an exhilarating change. It sounds like you feel really hopeful about the future of what you're doing. So what's kind of next as you look ahead through the next couple years? And I try never to think more than 2 or 3 years ahead because I always get bitten by that.
Yeah.
But like in that short future, what are you thinking is next for Delaware Business Times? What do you want to achieve and focus on?
Yeah, it's revenue growth would be nice because
Sure.
revenue cures a lot of ills out there for sure. The more money we can bring in, the more staff we can add back, and the more work we can do. That would be nice. But there's one of the things that we've been able to do really well is find partnerships out in the community as well. We're so excited about the work we're doing with DSU. We
Mhm.
do a lot of work with some of the state agencies, and these are ways that we can really develop partnerships and develop some partnering and brand identity for ourselves. Nothing excites me more than when some of our sources or our economic development leaders, want to use what we're doing as an example for why you should be coming to Delaware.
Absolutely.
In Delaware, we're in this weird place where it's growing rapidly. Like we've never been above 1 million people. We're just now kind of cusping over 1 million
Okay, though.
people. Yeah, we're just getting over that. I think we were just shy of it in the last census report. We're having
Mhm.
this flood of retirees coming from, and I see it where I live. We see it down at our beach communities. It's that perfect middle point between DC and New York. It's got a very low tax climate. It's got a very favorable local government system. It's very small government. There's really less than 100 elected leaders in the entire state. So it gets easy to get things done here. And
Mhm.
so I think there's going to be real opportunity for us to work on some interesting projects that really help meet the needs and interest of some of these new people coming in, some of these prospective new readers and subscribers. And I think, as long as we keep doing what we're doing, I hear it all the time in the community that, the people that are in our business community are just excited to have a really independent, strong media brand back in the state. And it's not to begrudge any of my colleagues at some of the legacy pubs, but times have been tough, and I think our ownership for kind of seeing an opportunity.
Well, and so I wanted to talk a little bit about the independence of your ownership and sort of how that affects some of the journalistic decisions and sort of how you're able to operate. Because, as I said earlier, Delaware is, I think, so fortunate. You have a lot of locally owned publications. And so, how does that kind of change the tenor of the media environment in Delaware?
For sure. It's as somebody that started at a family-owned paper and has seen kind of the move through some of the corporate iterations. It's tough. It really is when you've got shareholders and you've got private equity managers involved in your operations, and they have their own set of goals. And look, I'm a business writer, a business publication. I get it. At the end of the day, you do have to make money, but there are times where that's a very hard goal to meet when you're trying to do truly good journalism, especially in a difficult market with where advertising is today. But being a family-owned publication, it does take some of those financial pressures off a bit. Certainly, certainly we have frequent meetings about where
Sure.
revenue and budget and expenses stand, and what we want to see and how we get there. But at the end of the day, if we perhaps fall short by a half point, it's probably not as dire if it was a larger publicly traded or private equity backed operation. So it does take a little bit of the pressure off when we're thinking about what we need to do and doing it the right way.
Mhm.
And at the same time, the way that we're able to approach our coverage, I think, has paid dividends, because there is always that concern. You're the business publication. You don't want to be overtly friendly to the
Sure.
businesses that you cover. And I recognize that. And so we do try to ask probing questions and intelligent questions, and we make it part of our identity that we arrive prepared. We know who we're talking to. We know what you've done. We know where you think you want to go. And we use the powers that we in the documents that we have available to us to try and share those stories with readers. So I think that there's a way to cover business that is at its heart sometimes antagonistic, and I think there's ways where we can kind of recognize that businesses in America play a part in our society, and sometimes they fall short and sometimes they exceed. But I think the vast majority of them survive in really this great ground. So that's really where we kind of try to look at it. We try to recognize what business is and what business can do and how life-changing they can be for many communities in our state. And I think that, the majority of business owners have really responded to that. And I've had many a business owner say, I stopped talking to reporters years ago. He's like, but I'll talk to you guys. So, that's a vote of confidence.
And then, I'm curious just because in terms of like attracting businesses and there's always state incentives or local incentives. And so how does that, I know, I'm trying to remember if you have a dedicated State House reporter. Well, no, you can't have a dedicated State House reporter, but, how can you talk a little bit about that interplay between state, covering state politics and the business community? Because they do probably intersect.
Absolutely. If we get one more reporter, that would be somebody that would be really full time. So right now, Katie and I kind of split double duty amongst our other responsibilities to try to make sure we're covering the State House.
Luckily, it's just it's not a full year session, and I love Delaware get anywhere in just a couple hours. So, but still.
There are things that are very much to our advantage. I can drive the length of Delaware in less than 4 hours. So if you needed to get down to, say, Delmar and back in a day, it's completely doable. The other nice thing is, yes, that our General Assembly only runs about January to June. So we don't have a full year session or a 9-month session that really eats up a lot of our attention. And even in those 6 months, they take quite a few breaks. There's only like 2.5 months of actual legislating happening in that period between some of the different breaks along the way. But we recognize that state government has a huge impact on how business is able to operate. I know not this last year, but the previous year, there was a lot of debate over bill. I believe it was SB 1, which was our Paid Family Leave and Medical Act. Which, as somebody with young kids and a family, I get it. I totally understand why that's something the advocates wanted to push for. But at the same time, I spoke to a lot of small business owners that said, this is going to crush me. Like, I don't have the money in my budget to do this. And, there are a lot of people out there that said, well, too bad, figure it out and find a way to make a dollar. But there are a lot of small business owners that recognize that some of the decisions from government may decide whether they can still pay those 6 or 7 employees that they have, or those 20, 25 employees that they have. And so, we try to be a voice for those business owners out there. We have great conversations with a lot of our industry association leaders, our Delaware Restaurant Association, our state chambers, our local chambers, manufacturing partnerships, about what it is that these policies are going to do for them. And so we do try to approach the assembly from a business point of view. We don't cover everything. You really won't find us covering gun reform. You won't find us covering abortion care unless there's some of these kind of social issues, unless there's a reason that businesses need to be involved. But there are things that involve tax policy or cost on business. We'll workforce issue. We covered a lot of the legalization of marijuana this year.
Sure.
These are all things that
that's going to happen next year. I mean, just aside,
it passed. The governor allowed it to pass. He didn't support it, but he didn't veto it as well. So it did pass. So marijuana is now legal. You just can't buy it yet. I think they're looking at about Thanksgiving of next year, of 2024, to get sales started. So
Well, that's going to open up a whole new world of coverage for sure.
There's opportunity in abundance for sure. I know many other business journals in states where they've legalized have launched whole publications kind of set aside for the marijuana industry. But we try to go after public policy and government decisions from a business point of view. And I'm very glad and happy to say we've got great relationships with the governor. I was just talking to him last night about some of the things that have been impacting his thinking on budgetary issues. And everybody from the Secretary of State, Secretary of Finance on down, and a lot of our legislative leaders. So we're excited about those partnerships too.
Well, and it sounds like you're well placed and sort of have your ear to the ground on what matters to the business community, but also to residents of Delaware. So I look forward to seeing more from you and your publication,
Sure.
and hopefully we'll have you come back soon and talk about other things that you're doing. So thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the opportunity, Rebecca, and thanks for everything MDDC does for us.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for listening to 5 Dubs with Rebecca Snyder. Please subscribe and leave us a 5-star review wherever you download your podcasts so that others can find us. What do you want to know about local journalism? Email me at rsnyder, SNYDER, at mddcpress.com. Interested in supporting our podcast and journalism? Please donate to our 501c3 Press Foundation. Find out more and see the full episode list and show notes at www.5-dubs.com.